Hall and Hart starts with the feasibility assessment. We want to fully understand the block, any parameters or constraints that we need to work within, the best approval avenues, whether it be DA or complying development through a private certifier. What's going to help maximise the client's outcomes? What's important to them? DA in some instances may make more sense over CDC if they're able to get a slightly bigger backyard. Or there may be big drawbacks with compliant development on that particular block, and it does make more sense to spend a little bit more time going through a DA process for what is a long-term family home, and they're going to be there for 10, 15, 20 years. The feasibility and understanding the site and site conditions is crucial. That gives us a really clear pathway for design. It helps us start to understand and quantify the project budget. Any of those non-negotiables, any constraints that are on the site. Trees are a common challenge that come up. We need to understand those before we start drawing and designing. We need to understand the stormwater, the slope, all of those conditions, because they'll have an impact on the total project budget and where it's going to end up. The feasibility assessment at the start is crucial. It enables us to understand, first of all, the site and the site conditions. It allows us to identify a clear pathway for approvals, whether it be complying development through a private certifier or a DA through the local council. This can have a huge impact on project timelines and costs as well. There's particular councils in Sydney where you may spend 18 months waiting for approvals. There's other councils on Sydney's northern beaches we've recently been getting approvals through in as little as 8 or 9 weeks. Complying development's a great pathway, but it does come with some restrictions. It enables us to identify the best outcomes for the property and for the client's vision to help pull this all together. In the feasibility phase, we're also taking a really clear brief from the client, understanding their vision, their needs, their wants, everything from the importance of sustainability to what sort of car they drive or they may drive in the future, so we can ensure that they're going to have ample room in the garage, ample storage throughout the home for sporting equipment, ski gear, Christmas trees, all of those things. It forms a foundation and a base for where we go with the project. In the feasibility assessment phase, whilst we're awaiting the survey and soil tests and compliance reports, we actually meet out on site with the client where possible, with the designer and the construction team. To fully understand the site, understand any elements that we really want to enhance, or anything that's maybe a little bit unsightly that we want to turn our back on. Understand the topography of the block and to see how it's going to integrate with the neighbours and the local landscape, and understand what the clients really either love about living there and they want to retain and keep, or some of their challenges and get to the root of why they want to knock down. We use the feasibility assessment to explore and understand the site first and foremost, but also what the client's wanting to achieve out of the project. Everyone's looking for different things when they're designing and building a home, and we want to get to the heart of what the individual client's wanting. We want to help them prioritise size and finishes. We want to understand the must-haves, the couple of things that they've always wanted when they're going to build a new home, and we want to make sure that we're weaving those elements into the design or into the finishes of the home. We've got our estimators there, our interior designers, our project managers, our town planners are all involved in these initial meetings in the feasibility phase. It enables us to go away as a team and have really good discussions about how we're able to execute the client's brief. Weave in some excitement in there and really nail it, and how we can get the best out of the block, their brief, and respect their project budget. That sort of, they'll pay us money, we're doing the brief, whilst we're awaiting surveys and soil tests, we're also doing a site visit with the client as well through that process. So we're sort of pulling all of that together. At the end of the initial feasibility phase, where we want to get to is a clear square metre rate that is hitting the client's needs and wants. We're factoring in the elements that are really important to the client. And then this gives the designer an accurate level of square metres to work towards. At the end of the feasibility phase, once we've explored the block and the client's brief and vision, the designer's then given a really clear scope in terms of bedrooms, bathrooms, square meterage to work towards. So we're able to execute the vision and come in on budget. So we start with the high level square metre rate. As we find out more about the block, the client makes more decisions. We move from initial hand sketches through revisions of that into detailed CAD plans. We've got our estimator who's on the project the whole way through, right from the beginning through to orders and everything going out to site and working directly with the supervisor when it's in construction. That estimator there is providing constant feedback and updates on pricing, just keeping us in line. Our designers are great. They've got a lot of vision and a lot of excitement. Sometimes we need to rein them in a little bit, and that's where the estimator comes in. We make sure that every decision is a conscious decision, that we're not getting price creep, and we're quantifying things. So we're able to put the client back in charge of where the project budget's ending up by providing constant feedback as we go. As we get further down the design channel and we work from initial sketches into more detailed CAD plans, we're working through getting initial engineering, concept landscaping, hydraulic advice, those sorts of things. We just fix more and more and more of the project until we're down in the minutiae of door handles and door stops and power points and things like that. At what point does Hall and Hart price a design during the design phase? The answer is constantly. We've got an estimator working on the project from the moment we order a survey and soil test on the site, right through to deep in construction, finalising orders with the supervisor. It depends. If the clients have got a well thought out brief and all parties involved in the decision making are really aligned and we've been able to explore that brief fully, it'll often be very comparable to where they end up. Where we do find some variance is if there's a change in scope, clients are potentially wanting to add more space, maybe more bathrooms, or a butler's pantry turns from a genuine pantry space into a second kitchen with additional ovens and cooktops and things like that. So look, it does depend, but that's why we have the whole team there working directly with the client from the start, just to quantify all these decisions. Working from a square metre rate means that we're able to say, look, Mr. and Mrs. Client, every square metre you're adding is X. Do you value this change this much? And if the answer is yes, great. If not, it really helps quantify it, and that's how we manage scope creep and we're able to keep to budget. We ensure cost transparency throughout the process by having the whole team directly involved in the project with the client the whole way through. What that means is clients have got constant access to estimators, interior designers, drafting. We're managing that project budget, we're managing the project scope alongside the clients, helping them optimise, make decisions, enhancing where we can, helping them weigh up potential compromises if need be, to be able to get the best out of their brief and out of their budget. We're able to get more and more granular with pricing as we go. So we start with a high level square metre rate. When the plans are firmed up in detailed CAD plans, the client's estimator is sending those off for quotes. We're getting the frames quoted, we're getting the slab quoted as early as possible. And we're just gradually fixing more and more and more of the project until we culminate with a fixed price building contract at the end. We find this gives clients peace of mind and certainty because you're starting with facts, you're starting with a high level rate based off their brief and budget using similar projects as a benchmark. As the client's making those decisions, we're able to just simply update pricing. We get more and more granular until we get to the end, just prior to construction start, which is where we culminate with the fixed price building contract after the approvals are in place. Inflation's relatively steady. It has been for sort of some 12 or 18 months, but time is still money. The overarching inflation rate in Australia at the moment's sort of somewhere in that 3 to 4% mark. On a $1 million project, that's 30 or 40 grand a year. If you just use the benchmark inflation rate, on a $2 million project at 60 or 80 grand a year, time is still money. We're not looking at projects going up by 10% in a matter of months as they were during the peak of COVID. It's certainly stabilised and it's in a lot better place, but time is still money and things are still getting more expensive, just at a slower rate. No, there's no real restrictions on customising floor plans, as long as we're meeting the National Construction Code requirements, of course, and local authority requirements. There are a few key things that we stand by as a company that we're just not comfortable in doing. Building box gutters over living areas, building uncovered balconies on the first floor, unless they're supported with a suspended slab. And look, if you're not sure why we do this, go and talk to some friends or family that have got box gutters in the middle of their home and ask them how often they leak. Or just simply go for a drive around your neighbourhood. Take note of uncovered balconies on homes that are 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. There's not many that look much good. We don't want to build homes that just make it sort of straggle past the 6-year major defect warranty. We want to build homes that are going to look fantastic in 20, 30, 40, 50 years time. That's why we've got a couple of core things, core principles that we just won't compromise on. How customisable is the floor plan? The answer's extremely, because we don't start with a plan. We start with a blank sheet of paper, a brief and a budget, and we go from there. It's understanding the client, it's understanding what they need, it's understanding their block, the light, the aspect, any views, anything they want to turn their back on. It's understanding what their plans are for the home now, what they are in the future. Are there kids? Are they younger? Are they older? Are there parents? Are there relatives overseas? Really understanding, getting to the bottom of how people live. It's sort of at the heart of our process. At the end of the day, this is an extremely client-centric process because we're building long-term family homes. It's often the biggest investment most people ever make, and it's emotional. It's a home. It's not a commercial transaction. It's not an office building. It's not a shop front or something like that. It's where you bring your family up. And so there's a big responsibility in that. So we've got to get it right. Some builders sign contracts early because it enables them to lock a client in and work everything out once they've got a significant financial commitment from the client. The problem with this is, from a client's perspective, you don't have any certainty. There's often not a plan or a design. If there is, it's definitely not approved. You haven't got any engineering, you haven't got any stormwater done. What the builders are really signing at that point is they're locking the client in and locking the client's intent in before the project's been fully explored, before they've looked at the feasibility of the project, the viability of it, even if they can build what the client wants to build on there. I've got numerous clients that have built with us that have walked away from their 5% deposits with other companies. In some instances, they're walking away from 60, 70, 80 grand. It just doesn't make sense. Conversely, at Hall and Hart, we work through our design and planning phase, understanding the site, the client, any restrictions, making sure we can deliver what the client wants and what we've said we're going to deliver before we finalise our agreement with a fixed price building contract after it's all approved. For me, it doesn't make sense to sign a building contract before it's been approved. Like, what are you signing? You're committing to build a house that may or may not be able to be built on your block of land. It just doesn't make sense. Look, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors in the construction industry in particular, and there's a lot of horror stories. Unfortunately, most of them are true. Sometimes at Hall and Hart, we're almost transparent to a fault. Because of our experience and our understanding of whether it be council requirements or whether it be stormwater or slope on a site, and just knowing what impact slope can have on overall project cost, we're pricing contingencies in as part of our process, part of our feasibility process. Even before clients pay us money, we're looking at other comparable jobs and we're benchmarking their project against other similar jobs that we've done recently and seeing how that's going to sit. That then shapes the discussion and the direction with clients. Because of how we do business and how we operate, we're a small company, we do limited projects a year. We develop really strong relationships with our clients. We've had supervisors that have been to weddings, been to birthdays of families they've built homes for. We develop exceptionally strong relationships with our clients, and that's often because of our transparency and integrity. One pitfall we see clients fall into a lot at the start is when we're talking about project scope or project budget. They'll often keep 30 or 40% up their sleeve because that's what their friend said, or that's what their family member said, or speaking at a barbecue with someone and they said that that's what happened with their build. In a lot of instances, that's exactly what you should be doing. At Hall and Hart, we work off accurate pricing from the start. Our square metre rate allows us to do this. The fact that the client's working directly with 6 or 7 different team members from Hall and Hart means that we're able to understand the complexity at the start. We're able to budget contingencies in. And we do sometimes find that clients don't end up engaging us and being able to build with us because they've put contingency on contingency. I've got a client on the Northern Beaches that we handed a home over for not too long ago, and their final contract price was less than their very first project budget. Look, they had a fair bit to do with that. They had a clear brief, they stuck to it, they were decisive, but notwithstanding all of that, their initial project budget that they started with, that we set, was higher than their final contract price. Often the best way to balance design aspiration and budget is, first of all, understanding the site and site conditions. But then once you are designing, being able to pull things back to a square metre rate, that really helps quantify the importance of additional space or rooms and things like that. What's really helpful is early in our process, we pull our ArchiCAD plans into a 3D model, and the clients are able to do a VR walkthrough of the home, and everything's to scale, everything's absolutely spot on. That really helps them quantify space and size and really understand it. Another way that I find helps clients quantify space and size is taking it back to something they're familiar with. Get the tape measure out, measure your bedroom at home, compare it to the size of the rooms on your plans at the moment. Compare it to something that you're really, really familiar with, and that'll help you understand that if your bedroom feels a bit tight at the moment and what's on your plans is similar, well, it's probably not going to give you what you want. But if your bedroom feels reasonably generous at the moment and what's been designed at the moment's 2 metres bigger than your current bedroom, it might be a little bit generous. You might be able to pull it back a little bit and reinvest that space into other areas such as a fireplace, a wine fit out or a bar fit out, some smart home integration, additional solar panels or battery and elements like that in the home. The common trap that I see clients fall into is whatever their conditions are at the moment. So say they're in a small Californian bungalow that faces south and and there's no light and the bedrooms are small and no one's got any room. It's easy to overcompensate. It's easy to sort of go from what you're in at the moment, a small dark home, and end up with a very large home that you need to wear your sunglasses in all the time because it's full of windows and light and skylights. And it's sometimes that pendulum can swing a little bit too far. And that's where working in closely with the team and sort of having us being able to benchmark things for you and draw comparisons to similar projects makes it a lot easier to quantify those decisions as you go through. At Hall and Hart, we work on a really transparent pricing model, so much so that the last thing we do before we start construction is sign a fixed price building contract. Working off this model means that we must be transparent with our pricing from the start because you're not locked in to a contract right from the get-go. We're working as a team to be able to understand your project, understand your conditions, and budget accordingly. At the end of the day, if you're building the same home with two different builders and you're using the same level of finishes, the same floor plan on the same block, they're going to come so close to each other when it comes to a final price. The paint, if it's from Taubmans or Dulux, they're super competitive. If it's in the same range, it'll be cents a litre difference. The appliances, if you're using popular European appliances and they're competing against each other, again, there's going to be a couple of dollars difference between them. The same grade of carpet or tiles or whatnot. Gyprock, it all comes from CSR. Your bricks come from Brickworks or Boral. It is super competitive because they're competing against each other. When it comes to pricing and pricing transparency, at the end of the day, the home is going to cost what it costs. The real difference is when you find out how much that cost is, whether it's right up front and right at the start, or it's after you've signed a contract and you're locked in, you've paid a deposit, and you're seeing terms like fixed up to, or subject to, or fixed if, and the price just keeps going up. Common regrets I see from clients or common challenges are not budgeting effectively for things that are outside of the builder's scope. At Hall and Hart, we manage everything end to end. The design, the approvals, we coordinate demolition, landscaping, pools. So when a client comes to us, we're looking at a total project budget. We're not looking at a slice of it. For us, the client can allocate that budget however they wish. If they want to do an amazing pool and landscaping and pull back on the house, great. It's their budget, they can drive it how they want. But what you commonly see is clients approaching a builder or an architect. Each stakeholder, whether it be the builder, the landscaper, the pool builder, the demolition company, they're all trying to get as big a piece of the pie as they possibly can. And what you'll often find is they'll approach the builder and the builder will say, oh, well, you can do a concrete in-ground pool, it'll only cost you 50 grand, or you only need to budget 20 grand for your landscaping. Whereas when the client's approaching us, because we do all of that, because we coordinate all of that, we're giving them real prices, we're giving them real figures. And a lot of clients now would be horrified to realise that most councils in Sydney, when you go through a DA, are conditioning the consent that they'll only give a final occupation certificate. And landscaping is a component of that final occupation certificate. You might have a client where they've budgeted 20 grand for landscaping because that's what the builder said it would cost. Council's condition that their landscaping must be done prior to moving in, and they've got 20 grand for their landscaping, which is going to cost 120. The bank won't make the final payment because they don't have occupation certificate. The builder won't give them the keys because they haven't made the final payment, and they're 100 grand short on their landscaping. They're situations that we avoid at Hall and Hart because we're transparent, we're upfront, and we understand the total project, not just a portion of it.